Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Torah on Tap. Anyway, so we are here tonight, and we are about to relaunch the Monday night classes, Bezrat Hashem. We're looking forward to seeing all of you here week to week. Please tell your friends, neighbors, anyone who should be here, please let them know that we're ready to welcome them. All right, anyway, Bereshit, beginnings. We just spent a exhausting month of holidays. It was only Sukkot was less than 2 weeks ago. Okay, it hasn't been 2 weeks yet. It was like 9 days ago. Okay, it was powerful. It was meaningful. I really do feel that there has been some kind of a release with the hostages being returned. You know, that pressure. I don't feel like we're no longer saying the special prayer to release the hostages anymore. I just do feel like that something happened this year that like we finally like broke out of the intense pressure, the intense anxiety of thinking of Jews being locked away in some dungeon, and asking them to dig their own graves, and watching the pictures and the videos. It was horrifying. And I really do hope that it does feel like the world is kind of like slowing down. I don't think we're heading into World War III, and I don't think that the world is coming to an end anytime soon, but I do think that the world is changing, no question about it. The world is changing economically, the world is changing politically, the world is changing socially, the world is changing on so many different levels. And I would argue that for you guys, you're going to see the most amount of change in the next couple of years in ways that you can't begin to imagine. From artificial intelligence to that, right now, I'm not sure if you saw this today, but Amazon's going to be laying off 30,000 employees because they have robots today doing that stuff. You don't need people doing it anymore. And I imagine that's going to keep accelerating with time. On some level, new jobs will be created because with AI, you will now have superpowers that make you into a more efficient, effective, worker. Imagine having like a tutor with you wherever you go, helping you, pushing you, motivating you, and so on and so forth. And that's where I think artificial intelligence is going. But as we talk about new beginnings, because that's what this is right now, we've already blew through Bereshit, blew through Parshat Noach, and Lech Lecha is really the first Parsha, you have like a real opportunity to breathe and like take in and start thinking more deeply about who you are, what is the Torah's messaging about, and so on and so forth. So now for me, I've read through the Parshiot for 27 years already now, or 28 years now already. It's a long time. And you'd think that there's very little to learn and gain, but that's not true. What I find is that the more and more I spend time rereading, relearning, reopening, revisiting these Parshiot, I find new vistas of understanding, new opportunities, new ways of appreciating the depth of whatever this messaging is. Now, how many of you have ever waited for a perfect moment to make that special move? You need to do something, and you're waiting for that moment, and you're going to do it, and you really want to do it, and you end up just stalling because you're part of that club. You know what I'm talking about, the procrastinator club. They always say we'll unite tomorrow, and they never get anything done because they're always stuck. Well, we've all done it, and we've all been in this space where we want to do things, and we somehow never get around to it. And that's why so much of like new beginnings is about new resolutions, right? New concepts, new ideas. I want to take on new responsibilities. And all too often we get stuck. We don't see the change we want. We get disheartened, and we kind of give up. And that is not a Jewish approach to living a life of meaning. And that's why Parshat Lech Lecha is so profound. So before we go into Lech Lecha, let's talk a little bit about the end of Parshat Noach. How does the Parsha end last week? Anyone know? Any readers of the Parsha? Parshat Noach ends with, yes, it does. It ends with the generations, but before the generations, it tells us a story about a bunch of people who go west, right, or east actually, and they settle in a town called Shinar, okay, and they decide they want to make a name for themselves. And they're going to build a tower, and they're going to bake bricks, and they're going to use their own mortar, and they're going to go ahead and build a tower that reaches the heavens so they could fight God, right? That's the beginning of that parak. And it ends with Terach and his family fleeing from Shinar, leaving a place called Ur Kasdim, which is Rashi tells us Ur Kasdim is where the fiery furnace was, where they baked the bricks and so on and so forth. Now, I want to ask a couple of questions, right? I'm sure you've seen these verses before. But let's ask some basic questions. Why does the Torah tell me they all spoke one language? Why is that important? Whenever the story in the Torah, the Parsha is telling you something, is doing it for a reason. Why are they going overhead and letting me know they spoke one language? Why is language an important part of that story? Number two, if you were tasked with building a tower, where would you start that building process? On top of a mountain, right? Because the goal of building the tower was to fight God in the heavens. So would you start on the lowest point of earth or the highest points of earth? Torah says that they were in a valley. Why would they go ahead and try to build a tower in a valley? Makes no sense. Why do they need to make a name for themselves? Why are they using baked bricks? Wouldn't it make more sense to do what other megalithic sites have done, which is use stones and quarry them and then use that to build your tower? They already exist. Why create material when the material already exists? And so, these questions are questions that maybe you thought of, maybe you have not, but very few of us have spent time kind of trying to figure out how to pull them all together. And I think there's a deep lesson. The Torah's never saying anything stam. For example, even in the way the Parsha begins, Lech Lecha, Ma'artzecha, Molaticha Beit Avicha, go to the land that I'm going to show you, leave the house of your father, the birthplace, the place where you grew up. Why all those things? Does it really matter? If I'm telling you, go to New Jersey, do I have to tell you, leave now from the Safra Synagogue, the place where you live not too far away, your apartment and your workplace? Go now. Just tell me, go to New Jersey, give you the address, wherever I'm going. You don't need to tell me where I'm, obviously, those are all extra words. Why is the Torah telling me about the idea of leaving my home, my birthplace, my country? Who cares? Just tell me where I'm going. And as a matter of fact, Pasuk doesn't even tell him he's going to go to the land that I'm going to show you, and God doesn't tell him where to go. He's got to figure it out on his own. And what's even more interesting, if we had Chumashim over here, you'll see in that parak right before the Parshat Lech Lecha begins, open it up tonight, look at the verses right before Lech Lecha. It talks about Terach taking his family to Eretz Canaan, not making it to Canaan, stopping in Haran, and dying there. And then the Parsha begins with Avram being commanded to leave. But according to last week, he already left. So where was he going? But these are not questions you're thinking about because you're just seeing it week to week and you're never kind of pulling a thread and trying to understand the whole entire bigger story, right? But Lech Lecha is a deeper story. It's about going into something more profound, and we're going to try to unpack that tonight. So let's ask the question, what does Lech Lecha literally mean? What does it mean? It means, all right, that's one way of saying it. Yeah, go to yourself. Lech Lecha. Go to yourself. What does that mean to go into yourself? How many people, if I told you to go to yourself, where would you go? What would you do? So, okay, some people would give a nice little embrace, right? But what does that even mean to go to yourself? Find your potential. Now, I've spoken about this for years already, right? Every one of you should have a picture in your mind's eye of what it means to be the best version of you. Why hasn't that image of the best you come forward? Why is it so hard to make that reality your reality? It's who you know you're meant to be. In your subconscious, in the deep inner recesses of your dark minds, you know what you are meant to accomplish and do, but yet you're distracted. And therefore, God says, Lech Lecha, Abraham, there's something different over here. Now, Lech Lecha as a command to Abraham makes absolutely no sense. You could start a book like that, and that would be interesting. That's a great beginning. Go for yourself, and you have no idea what's going on. And then you hear about this guy, and you learn about him in the backstory, but we already have the backstory. So now the question is, well, what does the last week's ending have to do with this week's beginning? Because they're interconnected. So let's unpack two things. When Adam and Eve sinned, what did they do? What was the result of their sin? They knew that they were naked. Then they were ashamed. Why were they ashamed of their nakedness? They were totally cool with everything blowing in the wind before. And then afterwards, all of a sudden, they're not okay with it. Well, what happened? Yeah.
Something that we need taught in recent series is that initially, we're told that their neshama was showing inside.
Right.
You see in exactly what they were.
Right.
What they were, and then after the sin, their outsides no longer match their insides.
Beautiful.
And it's like that's one of the things that's such a big issue for us. Like when someone misunderstands you or doesn't see you for what you are, like we get it.
100%. One of the greatest mental health issues of this generation is body dysmorphia, which is I don't think it existed in the same way 70 years ago, 50 years ago, 30 years ago even. It's rampant because there's an obsession with my appearance and how I look and filters and all this and so much. I was walking today to Uri's down I walked down 64th Street all the way down to 3rd Avenue. And I guess there was some models where they're taking pictures. They close the block down, and there's some photos of all kinds of interesting positions. I'm just trying to walk by, and I'm thinking you're wearing this tiny clothing. It's freezing outside, and they're in the sun, so it looks like they're in warm weather. It's like freezing outside, and there's so much of they're coming there powdering them. I don't know who it was. Must be someone famous. And doing their hair person there, and they're the lighting and everything like that. But there's so much of an emphasis on the chitzoniyut, on the externalities, that on some level we start believing that this muddy stuff is actually us. And Adam and Eve understood that this was not us, and therefore, the chet of Adam and Chava was a destruction of the sanctity of the body. That's what it was. The complete destruction of the sanctity of the body. And when it came to the generation of Noach, it was a destruction of the sanctity of the soul, no morality. And with the generation of the Dor HaFlaga, this third generation, it's really the fourth, because Cain and Hevel is also considered a generation. But that fourth generation of the Dor HaFlaga, that was a breakdown in the sanctity of the intellect. What are we going to do? We're going to make ourselves a name, okay? We're going to use technological advancements. We're not going to take anything from the material world. Anything that was created by God, we're going to reject. No mountains, no stones. We're going to bake everything on ourselves to a point where we're going to use our intellectual ingenuity to fight God. They're using their wisdom to figure out a way of conquering the universe. Now, it's interesting. I can understand how the body gets, corrupted. I can understand how, the soul can get corrupted even. But how does the intellect get corrupted? Doesn't truth always reign supreme? I'm not sure if you saw this today, but someone sent me an ad for Zoran Mamdani. I call him Morani, but and it was a rabbi, Rebbitzin, saying, hey rabbi. These 4 women who are rabbis, and one's a ex-chassid trans Rebbitzin rabbi. And they're all saying how and why they're voting for Zoran Mamdani and why we should also, right? Now, the interesting thing about the intellect is that it can be twisted. How could any Jew vote for someone who's obviously a wolf in sheep's clothing? He's 100% an Islamist. He's 100% a pro-Hamas guy. He's 100% an anti-Semite. No question about it. I don't care if you try to go ahead and convince me otherwise. It's impossible, right? It's obvious what his intentions are. He does not care about New York City. He wants Sharia law. He lied about his aunt and so on and so forth. He's just the guy's a faker. Everything about him is fake. He's a phony. Well, why are people rushing to go ahead and vote for him? Because the intellect has been corrupted, right? Tax the rich. We're going to make free housing, free grocery stores, free buses. This is nonsense. This is exactly what Khomeini said 40 years ago, literally word for word. This is the playbook of the Islamists using social services to go ahead and use it as a front to take over power and then eventually control and never give up power. This is how they get Sharia law started in a city, in a country, and so on and so forth. Well, how does the intellect get corrupted? Because of a lack of? No. A lack of? That's true. No, critical thinking can get you to that same wrong place. You know what it's a lack of? Humility. Reshit Chochma Yirat Hashem. Real knowledge should be taking us to a place where we recognize, I know nothing. Do I really know? I don't know. I don't know that, free anything is the right thing. So when you live in a world where everyone is a Baal Hadeya, everyone has an opinion, and their opinion has to be heard, because I'm insulted, and how could you not let me, share, and so on and so forth. But no, if we lived with humility, I wouldn't feel outraged, because I don't have all the answers. I wouldn't be screaming in someone's face, kill Charlie Kirk. All these crazy people out there all believe that they know, when in fact the only thing any one of us should know is that we know not. These people want to make a name for themselves. They spoke a language. The reason why the Zohar says they spoke one language, the reason the Torah tells them, because the language they spoke was Lashon HaKodesh, and they were going to use the Hebrew language to bind the angels to take control over the spiritual realms. They're going to use all their wisdom and knowledge to take control over everything that the material world has, because they want to get rid of God. Why should we let God run the show? We'll do it ourselves. And it's funny, because the Parshat Noach begins with a people who are ungrateful for the world that God creates. And the Torah tells us that the world was filled with Hamas, not the terrorist organization, but the word Hamas means robbery, thievery. Who cares about that? The Midrash tells us that you would go to the fruit store and everyone would take one grape off. There's no stealing. If I take one grape, I'm not stealing anything. But if 100 people steal one grape, there's no grapes left. So what you saw, Noach was the beginning of moral breakdowns. I could go ahead and I could justify this. I could rationalize my lack of morality. It's totally okay, but I'm going to start with the small little things. That's how they get you. The Yetzer Hara gets you, a society, a country, small little things. You know when it started in this country? This country started losing its way when it didn't know how to fight for the belief in God. You get God out of the classroom, you get prayer out of the classroom, you get rid of religion, you destroy religion, because all priests are bad, all rabbis are bad, everyone's bad, it's all bad. And therefore, you get rid of the religion. Once you get rid of the religion, people need to have something they believe in. So what's going to come in? And it's atheism. And atheism is, there's no objective morality. It's all relative, right? And I can do whatever I want at that point. And now I can be a 18-year-old, rabid, insane college student thinking that I have all the answers because I read Google. I read Wikipedia. Now I know. I know more than my parents know. You know nothing. What do you want to say?
I just wanted to ask where it's broken down that the language that they spoke was
Zohar in Bereshit says it. Their whole concept was to go figure out a way of taking control over the physical universe. Every aspect of it. I'm going to do it in the pit. I don't want to take anything from God. I'm going to use bricks. This is why Midrash says if a brick fell from the tower, they'd start crying. But if someone fell from the tower, we didn't care. They didn't care about humanity. It was a complete disconnect from humanity, but an overemphasis on our desire to control the physical space, and that was the superpower of everything. We want to control, free everything. We're going to create our own perfect society. It was a socialist society. We all work together. We all share everything together. We're going to take care of all the poverty. We're going to take care of all the people that need to be taken care of. The Torah, by the way, the Vilna Gaon says that each story that takes place in the Torah, the reason why it's mentioned is because it's the first time these things happen in history. And they're doomed to repeat itself. So for example, the battle of the 4 kings and the 5 kings was the first time different armies joined forces together to fight a war, to take over bigger parts of land. That never happened. That was the first world war of the time. That's why it's mentioned. Otherwise, who cares? And the story is the first time humanity decides to come together, which is a very noble thing. They're working together, harmony. As a matter of fact, to the point where God says, let me come down and see what they're doing, right? And he says, I can't do anything to these people because they have unity, they have achdut. So this is where achdut goes wrong. I would say that, the Tower of Babel was like the first Woodstock. But it wasn't a music festival. It was let's build a city together, get drunk, and do crazy things together, and we're going to take control. We're in control. We know better than our parents. It's the same thing like all the hippies. They thought they knew better. And so, and by the way, it's because of that generation we have what we have right now, a lack of moral clarity. It was a breakdown. They lacked the humility to say, maybe we don't know better. Maybe we should respect the old order. Of course you should challenge. Of course you should question everything. But who says burning everything down is a right thing right now? We are where we are today. I believe so much of where the world is broken today is because of the 70s.
Who was 18 in the 70s?
Yeah, that's our parents' age. They messed it up for us. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. Anyway. So Hashem says, go into yourself. These people why do you go into yourself? I'm going to make you into a blessing. Everyone will be blessed through you. And when you go into yourself, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make you a name. You think that word, Aseh Lecha Shem, is an accident? It's literally the same exact language that was used in the parak before for the Dor HaFlaga. They wanted to make a name lack of humility. We're going to take ownership control. We're going to storm the gates of heaven and do what we want. Versus Abraham, who was given the land. Imagine I told you right now, guys, good news, I'm giving each of you 100 acres of land. What's the first thing you would do? You know what I would do? I'd make a big banner and say, Rabbi Reuven's land, have it out there, and start building my castle. That's what I would do. What does Abraham do when he gets to Canaan? You know what he does? He builds himself a tent. He understands that nothing on this earth is permanent. He's not looking for big, real estate and property. He doesn't care about that stuff. You know what he cares about? The things that are inner, the inner parts. How do I impact the world and make it a better place? He felt a sense of responsibility. He was very proactive. He was the first activist, global activist, not like Greta Thunberg, who was only thinking about herself. This is a quote from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. He says, to be a Jew is to be on a journey, to move, to grow, to discover who you are and why you are here. And if you don't know why you're here, if you can't answer that question, you, my friends, don't know what it means to be Jewish. The most important thing we can be doing with our time right now is clarifying who you want to be and where you want to go. For some of you, you've already done that. And if you've done that, amazing, right? When Hashem tells Abraham, he says three things. Your land, birthplace, your house. Hashem is saying, you want to become great, leave everything behind. Nothing comes with you. If you could go ahead and start from scratch right now, completely detach from everything that has brought you to where you are right now, what would you look like? Who would you be? The avodah of a Jew, the first Jew, by the way, he was dealing with the same exact issues we have today. He had a shidduch crisis. Couldn't find a good shidduch for his son, Avraham, for Yitzchak, right? There was a low birth rate, right? It was low numbers. We were under attack, anti-Semitism, with all these people who wanted to kill him, his wife, and so on and so forth. Those are horrible things. Nothing's changed. It's the same exact stuff. But Abraham survives and thrives because he's doing the inner work of not allowing himself to just be where he came from. Why does God tell him to do the milah at 100? Why couldn't he tell him at 75? Why wait till his 100th birthday? Maharal says the reason why you have to wait till you're 100 years old to do your brit milah is because at 100 you are completely disconnected from your past. You're no longer the product of your family, your environment. You are completely something unique. Now, I'm saying this now, and I hope one day we could look back at this, right? You are all going to live well into your hundreds. Healthy, young 100-year-olds. The Gemara says before Mashiach comes, when someone dies at 100, they're going to say, he died at a young age. So we're going to get there. You're going to live for a very long time. So I'm not saying you should procrastinate even more. That would be the biggest mistake. What I'm suggesting is that if you can maximize your lives and take advantage of your time to become something more, to make the world a better, greater place for you and for me, for the entire human race, there are people. Anyway, so anyone know what that's from? No? What? We are the world. That's right. Did you say that? Did you say Free Willy? All right. Faith is not certainty; it's the courage to live with uncertainty. That's what Abraham's. That's real faith. I have the courage to live. I don't know where everything is coming from. All I know is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, at the end of the day, will go ahead and ensure that I will be able to succeed. And the world of comfort is not an easy place to leave from. I understand comfort. I get it. I want to be comfortable right now. I don't want to go outside. It's freezing. I didn't bring a jacket. I don't want to go outside. It's too cold. I'd much rather live in warm weather. But I know that in the world of adversary, in the world of a challenging climate, I become healthier. I grow more. When I go outside in the winter and I push myself to be out in the sun, even though it's cold, I'm stronger for it, not weaker for it. And by the way, 99% of the time, whenever you don't want to do something because it's uncomfortable, it's probably the thing you should be doing. Did you ever see that Jerry Seinfeld episode where he said, I'm going to do, if all my instincts are wrong, then the opposite must be the right choice. So anything that I want to do, I'm just going to do the opposite. You know what I'm talking about? So I feel like that's true for ourselves when we're making choices. If you're going to choose between comfort and purpose, right? Purpose has meaning. Comfort is just comfort. It's fleeting. Comfort does not lead to anything meaningful. Comfort leads to depression. I'm not saying you shouldn't get a good chair to sit on. I'm not saying you shouldn't go on a vacation. I'm not saying you shouldn't choose to go on a Poland trip where you could be in luxury and be depressed at the same time. But don't live a life that feels more comfortable. Live a life that feels more purposeful. Live a life with more meaning. Lech Lecha is Hashem whispering, don't wait until you're ready. Go now, and I'll show you the rest later. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to figure everything out. But you're stalling. So the hardest part of change is not the journey, it's the first step. And you're stuck. I'm not ready. And the truth is, you'll never be ready. There's never a scenario where you're ready. No one's ever ready for it. You have to just jump right in. I remember, I don't know why this memory just popped into my head. I remember thinking, it was the week of I was getting married. I got married on September 27th, which at that time was the week of I started to make the Teshuvah. I got married between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. My wedding was like 2 days after Tzom Gedalia, so I fasted 3 times a week at my wedding. And I remember thinking wow, I'm doing this thing, I'm getting married, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know what happens after the I was freaking out. I don't even know what it means to be a husband. How am I doing this? I remember feeling paralyzed. Before I walked down the chuppah, I had a rabbi who came up to me, and this is some kind of old European custom, which I don't recommend for any rabbi to do to their student, but he ripped into me, gave me musar for 10 minutes. You're a lowlife, you're a loser. I'm like, oh my God, you're right. I'm just such a bad person. I shouldn't be getting married right now. I gotta go. And then they just threw me out. I'm green. I'm you can see my video. I'll show you my wedding video. I'm literally about to vomit. I'm so afraid. I'm terrified about walking down the aisle. Now, I love my wife. She was my wife then, my girlfriend, and a girl that I was engaged to. And and I wanted to have this amazing, wedding experience. But I was so broken by the preamble of that experience that I couldn't fully appreciate the walking down. I was people thought I was gonna faint. I was in a really bad, very, very bad, terrifying state. But I understood the thing that kept getting me through all of it was that I'm never gonna be ready. There's no way to learn any of this. I have to throw myself in. There's no perfection, right? It's only just going. Movement is life. It's also true for spirituality. It's also true for gashmiut. It's true for all things. Stagnation is an expression of death. There's no room for stagnation in our lives. So don't allow fear to paralyze you, right? You have to find, if you want a world of meaning, God's not going to hand it to you. You have to go out and create it. Every story is God placing individuals in a place. Why does God have to tell Abraham to build an ark for the animals? Couldn't God make all the animals walk on water? Sorry, Noah. Why does he tell Noah let Noah do nothing and give Noah the power to walk on water, right? And all the animals walk on water, and that's it. Why bother doing it? And the story, every story, why does he have to go? God can magically go ahead and plop Abraham down and throw him into Eretz Canaan. Why does he have to make him go on the journey? Think about the stories. If you don't take ownership of your story, of your journey, it's not meaningful. The greatest gift God can give you is the ability to choose to be you. Choose to be great. So there's a parable of a man standing before this deep canyon, and he sees no bridge, and there's no way to cross. So he has an inner voice saying, "Take a step forward." And he says, "There's nothing there." The reply comes and says, "The bridge will appear once you step." He hesitates. He takes one step, takes a step, a trembling step, and a bridge appears beneath his feet. That's what Lech Lecha is. That's true for all of our lives. You're so afraid of moving forward. You're stuck. Your job is to keep moving forward. Keep taking those steps. When you can't take a step out the door, right? You've already surrendered. You've lost. Keep pushing. I tried once, I did it, I fell, it didn't work out. Keep going. Don't stop. Avram didn't stop. Let's see what happened. God says to Avram, I'm going to make you great, a great name. I'm going to give you the land of, of Canaan and so on and so forth, right? What happens? Famine. He can't stay in Israel, right? Can't stay in Israel. He goes down to Egypt. His wife is abducted, right? He's going through horrible trials and tribulations. That's the reward. This is how you get a great name? And the answer is yeah. You have to have bitachon. I shared this with my family on Shabbat when it says that Noach matza chen be'enei Hashem, that Noach found chen in God's eyes. What does that mean? Ben Ish Chai says that Noach matza chen be'enei Hashem is that he had bitachon. The word bitachon is made up of two words, tov and chen, right? And that when you have bitachon, God finds favor in your eyes. You got to just trust the process. You don't have to know everything. But you got to move. You got to try new things. You got to be daring. You got to go out and push yourself in places because whatever you're doing up until now is not working, so you got to try something different. I'm telling you, when Abraham took that first step, the road appeared later. It's not always clear. Sometimes you have to just jump right in. So what is your Lech Lecha moment? Okay, so you have to ask yourself questions. These are the questions for you tonight. What's the land I need to leave from? Right? Where's the place that I got too comfortable in? What's the identity I need to outgrow? The labels or limitations that I've accepted? What's the Father's house? The voice telling me to stay small, not to be big. And most importantly, what steps do I need to take that I've been avoiding? Right? So I'm just going to leave it like this. This is your challenge. Choose one area where you've been waiting, just one spot this week. Take one step forward. Something that you've been avoiding to do. Take one step forward. Make the call, apply for the position, tell off that person, start the habit, end that distraction. You don't need to see the end of the road to succeed. You need to just take that first step. Avram didn't move through the world. He moved the world forward by taking that step. That's what Hashem wants for you. He is ready to go ahead and turn the world upside down for you, but you have to be willing to take that first step. And it all began with those two little short words, right? Lech Lecha. That's how it started. Stop waiting, start becoming, and let Hashem show you what you truly can be. Have an amazing week, Bezrat Hashem. I'm looking forward to hearing all your stories and all the things you tried. May Hashem bless you with the clarity, the wisdom, the knowledge to take that first step and recognize that is the beginning of your journey to greatness. Have a great night, everybody.